If you think that America's tabloids are nasty, consider their counterparts in England, where catty cruelty has been raised to an art form. But now there is a backlash brewing after a TV personality took her own life following a harrowing turn in the spotlight.
Caroline.
She wasn't well known in the U.S., but in the U.K., Caroline Flack was a major celebrity, known for hosting the reality show Love Island, her own romantic life, and most recently getting embroiled in an ugly domestic violence case.
Surrounded by photographers as she arrived at court accused of assaulting her boyfriend.
A week ago, Flack committed suicide, sparking a debate over whether Britain's notoriously aggressive tabloids played a role.
Serving the public interest is not the same thing as, meeting this quite ghoulish thirst for details of people's lives that sometimes we just should not have.
A petition that would make it a criminal offense if the media bullies someone into suicide now has more than 700,000 signatures. In Flack's case, such a law might have deterred the publication of pics like these or headlines like these. Problem is, it's not clear the media alone is to blame. The government's decision to prosecute has been criticized too.
Flack's management team has strongly criticised the CPS, saying its decision to prosecute her caused a very vulnerable woman a significant amount of distress.
Also drawing attention in the aftermath of Flack's death, the unwillingness of sites like Twitter and Facebook to police ugly personal attacks.
There is just yards of abuse on social media, and I think the mainstream media as well has to stop amplifying it.
And there's an awkward reality for anyone hoping Flack's death will change the media's M.O. The same press culture some say destroyed her also made her who she was. So one problem, obviously, is if you create a law saying the media is going to be penalized if they bully someone to death, how do you establish a certain cause? I mean, that's notoriously difficult when people take their own life. I don't know how you would do it in a case like this. There are other factors to mention. ITV, the network that employs her, has had 3 people, including her connected with that reality TV show, commit suicide. So there's some concern about whether they are setting people up to have terrible experiences. But I got to say, the British culture around people like her is so strange and unfamiliar to me. The idea that someone who was a reality TV show host would get coverage like you'd expect a member of the royal family to get, it's all out of proportion, and I guess that can redound to people's benefit and also be incredibly excruciating if you start to get negative coverage, and she certainly did.
You know, one of the interesting things about this is that in the UK, they already have laws in place that restrict the press in ways that are not the case in this country, and yet they continue to have this incredibly toxic tabloid culture. I think that what you've got here is this real witch's brew of social media and the tabloid culture in the UK, and it's just created this horrendous situation. At the same time, as you say, you can't say that the media are responsible for her suicide. There's just no way of knowing, and there's so much that goes into that, a horrendously tragic decision like that to point to one factor isn't fair either.
Well, that's the thing. 2 things can be true. There can be a toxic culture, and there can be somebody who's just a troubled individual who then, puts herself or is put in these situations and these positions where, the spotlight is so great and the pressure is so great. And then to maintain a career in media and as a kind of reality star as she did, you see this with reality stars in the U.S. to some degree too. If you're going to sustain reality TV stardom as your career, you have to be doing more and more crazy, newsworthy, ridiculous, challenging things. So she was in this sort of fishbowl, somewhat of her own volition, but obviously the toxicity was just kind of beyond.
There are 2 factors. You pointed it out. Dan pointed it out as well. There was the social media post, which we all read, that was from her, that was published by her family after her death, where she admitted to severe emotional distress over a long period of time. Not to diminish anything that the slimy, very difficult, different culture press does, the tabloid press in England. There was one other little thing, too, that I noticed about this, and in no story that I read did it say that she committed suicide. Now, this is something a few years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, most mainstream media in this country stopped using that term. We would say, take their own life, or died by suicide, or something like that. And the word or the term committed suicide by mental health officials in this country, they they say that it suggests that you are committing a crime or committing a sin, and it reinforces the stigma of suicide.
I'm glad
and
you
I
brought
noticed
that up.
that nobody used that. So I'm going to give one small kudo to press in England and in the United States, because there are still people in the United States. It's not universal yet. There are still people in the United States that will report using that term.
Oh yeah, I probably have used it right here today. So
And I've never heard that, so thank you.
It's the relentlessness of, that's what separates, I think, a little bit the paparazzi here. I mean, we can be relentless about a few people, but it's not it's not like the foot to the pedal all the way to the floor on everybody, to your point. And Joanna, you were saying if you do something crazy, well, the only crazy thing she was doing was dating this guy, and they had a troubled relationship, apparently.
Well, but
which
before
then
she had dated other celebrities. She
yeah,
dated.
But that's not crazy.
She did things that were designed to get attention. And again, I'm not putting any blame on her. I'm just saying that's the situation.
Well, that could have just been her dating life.
Attention worry. She was 40 and she dated Harry Styles, or she was in her 30s and dated Harry Styles when he was 17. Like that kind of thing.
I'm just pointing. Priyanka Chopra is married to the Jonas Brothers. Hello, and that turned out fine. So I'm just saying that I don't know. I don't know that I would characterize her dating life as so off to invite this kind of thing. That's just her life. And then they decided that they would, be relentless. My only other point I would make is she could, if they were going to take this to court, there's a ready witness to this, and that would be Meghan Markle. So you didn't drive her to that point, but you drove her out of the country because and Harry, because they were on the other end of this.
I want to mention just real quickly, we showed those garish images of blood-spattered sheets. It has been claimed, I believe, by Flack and her boyfriend that blow was actually hers. That she had someone had an accident.
Right.
Yeah.
With the lamp, she was supposed to have hit him on the head.
It was
with the
presented,
lamp.
and it sounds like that did not actually happen. So there's an example of how an image actually can muddy the waters. Also, we got a note here that, remember the Levison inquiry from I think back in the early 2010s, which was supposed to look, that was after the reporter was caught hacking into the phone of a girl who I believe was later found murdered. The searching examination of Britain's tabloid culture and what had to change. Nearly a decade later, not a lot.
Here we are.
Nothing has